Good morning. Are you ready to get more plant powered? I'm going to show you the plant powered smoothie that I make every single day. So let's get started. All right, for the first step, you're going to be putting about 8 to 10 ounces of plant-based milk into your Vitamix blender and then adding chia seeds and turmeric. For the chia seeds, I recommend putting them in first because if you put them in later, they will get a little wet and they stick all over the blender and you'll basically be throwing most of them out. So I will put them in and then I kind of just shake it. Want to make sure that they get covered in liquid. Once you do that, you can just let them set for about 10 minutes. So we will do that now. One thing I do want to talk about is blenders. Now there are many different blenders you can use. Some of them start at $50 or less, and some of them go all the way to $1,000. I really like the Vitamix for a few reasons. So about 2 years ago, they redesigned the blender bottle. This has been used for about 6 months. It's awesome. So what they did is instead of the tall one, they redesigned the blade configuration and it just blends better, especially for 50-ounce smoothies. The old design, I'd have to use the tamper, this little guy, constantly to get it to actually work, and most of the time it still didn't blend. So I returned that one, switched to this guy. It made my life so much easier. You spend much less time prepping and getting your veggies ready. Another little hint, almost all Vitamixes are virtually the same machine. They have almost the same amount of power between each one of them. So the biggest difference is this upgraded blender bottle. Their top of the line ones are slightly less noisy. But for me, I always have them at full power, so I don't even notice the difference in noise. So I'm a big fan of Vitamix. Blendtecs also work, but without this little device, making plant-based smoothies and also nut-based cheeses and stuff, it's just a little bit more work sometimes. So that's my tidbit on blenders. Before we begin on actually preparing the smoothie, I want to be sure we go over safety, especially knife safety. So first, you must have a high-quality chef knife, such as this one. This is a Chicago cutlery knife that's available on Amazon for less than $30. Chefs all around the world use this exact knife, and it really is awesome. It keeps sharp for a really long time, and it cuts like a dream. So, before you cut into an avocado seed, be sure you have a high quality knife. Now let's actually get cutting. Here are the majority of the ingredients that we will be using. Now again, these are just ideas. You can always add whatever you want into your smoothies. This is just a good base. So one of the first things I usually start with is the ginger. Ginger is a little tricky because if you don't cut it right, you're going to have strings all through your smoothie. So what I usually do is I cut it in this direction. I usually add about that much per day. It's a good amount. Not too much, not too strong of a flavor, yet enough ginger to actually be healthy. The next step is to cut the apples. So apples are really simple. They just need to be quartered and then tossed in. I get my apples from Trader Joe's, organic, delicious. They change flavors depending on the season for the organic brand. Usually I will use a single large apple or half of a large apple. Right now I've been getting a bunch of these small guys. You can take off the little stems if you'd like. You can knock out the seeds if you want. Now for the bananas. All I do for a banana is I wash it and then I just rip off this little top. And that's it. Toss it in. Really simple. Carrot. Also easy, break in half, toss in. Orange. We're just gonna cut it in 4 pieces. Now with a large orange like this, you can either do a whole orange or a half of orange, depending on how sweet you want it. The peel is really incredibly healthy for anybody dealing with lung issues, including cystic fibrosis, pneumonia. It also helps with asthma, one of the main reasons I keep the peels in there. I will, throughout my smoothie making, have halves of many things. Orange, avocado. I don't use the entire thing. So I then have a little bin where I just store the extra half. And then I use that the next day. For the avocado, you just want to splice it in half. Just around the seed, the pit. Split. There's a little bit of dark stuff in there. We're going to just scoop that out. That happens. It's an avocado. So this is where the really good knife comes in. Splice half, and there you go. And then this is the trick. You want to cut it as good as possible. So we're going to I usually just bounce like this, just to get, well, this one's a tricky one today. So I'm gonna, again, great knife. That's better cut. You always want to be about in the middle, and then you just go down the half, and then you got 2 halves, and then 2 halves are really easy to splice apart. So just cut it up, and then when you have about half cut up like this, we'll just throw that in, and the blender will do the rest. The other half I finished cutting, so I put on its tummy, and then I just splice down, and then I put it into whichever half of the avocado, which I'm not going to use today. So we'll do that at half, and then we'll put it in our little box. We're gonna have a nice big spoon. Now some people actually peel their avocados. Sometimes it works really well, kind of like that. Well, it actually might work really well today. Sometimes it doesn't work very well. So it just depends on the day. Are you having a good avocado day or a bad avocado day? Most of the time, avocados are pretty great. One other trick with avocados, you have to leave them out. These are my ones that are for next week. I leave them out until they are to the soft ripe point. I'll just remove this little spot. And then the rest of this is ready to go into the blender. And then we'll just dispose of this. I do not know of any nutritional reason to eat the avocado peel. It's one of the only things I do discard. Okay, now for the sweet potato. So this sweet potato is good for probably 3 to 4 days. So this is a 1.3 pound sweet potato. I know that because I just drove to the store specifically to buy it. And usually I get them at Costco. Really great price. I think I buy 10-pound bags. They last me about 2 months. But today, for this video, I wanted to make sure I had a really nice one. So I went to the store because I was out. And yeah, so I'd go about this much of the sweet potato. And then you don't need to do too much more. The blender will do most of the work. Maybe a couple of cuts like that. And then toss it in the blender. So this, I'm going to actually switch to a larger container, and then I will be putting this in that container. Here's the beet and the greens. So beet greens are great. I switch my greens pretty much all the time. Sometimes it's kale, sometimes it's spinach, sometimes it's beet. I constantly vary my greens. So anyways, always, pretty much every day I put in beets. The reason is for a couple things. Obviously, they're really healthy, but also they trick the senses because it turns a smoothie. If I did it right now and blended this would be kind of a greenish concoction. People would not find that very appetizing. And so this tricks the senses to think that it is not a green smoothie. A big A big beat like this will work for 2 to 3 days. Today I'm gonna just do 2 days. I don't cut the other half very much. I will just put it in the box. So these, I'll just do another splice, 4 pieces, toss them into the blender. It is getting nice and full. So now for our greens, I've already washed these, and I'm gonna just basically take them like this and toss them into organic mixed berries, and I will throw in a good handful, and now we have a full blender. All right, we have prepped all the food for the Vitamix, and it is now time to blend. Before you start, you want to make sure that you have the lid on very tight. So if your blender is overfull like mine today, you have to kind of smush it around. We are now ready to safely blend. And then you also have to get your tamper ready. I'm gonna turn it on now and it's gonna get really loud. Another tip, anytime you remove the top from the lid, make sure that either you have your hand or the tamper covering the top. Otherwise you will have smoothie all over your kitchen. So now we will get started. Alrighty, we did it. We now have approximately a 50-ounce smoothie. I made it a little bit larger than I normally do. I just got excited. Anyways, couple tips. Highly recommend you work as fast as possible, especially when the blender is on, because the longer you have it on, the warmer it gets, and warm smoothie is pretty gross. So now we're gonna put it into a quart-sized jar. It's pretty darn thick, so you fill up the jar. This is at least what I do. I fill up 1 quart, and then I always have extra. All right, we got 10 ounces of smoothie left, and now we're going to make up the crazy water. So I'm gonna just put 22 ounces of filtered water into this and blend again. All right, I've added 22 ounces of water into the blender to make what I call crazy water. The crazy water does 2 things. The first thing it does is clean out the blender, because you don't want to really waste all this good food. And the second thing is it's going to be the best thing to kickstart your day every day. So now I'm going to get blending again. Alrighty, so crazy water is done. It has a pretty thin consistency. Usually this is probably what you would get at a regular juice bar or smoothie bar. It's really easy to just down. Another tip for smoothies, I always finish with the quart jar completely full. It's really thick. It barely moves. Yeah, a lot of people refer to it as pudding instead of an actual smoothie. It's pretty much just plants. So what I do is I usually drink it down to about here, and then I refill it with water. And I keep on doing that, and it's another way to even get more water in your day. So drink up.